Rad samurai, lo-fi analog robots, and SMG-wielding ninjas. Kunai is all about the rule of cool. Kunai's big gameplay conceit is the multifunctional mobility of its main character's grappling hook kunai. But it's also got a whole bevy of Metroidvania-style power-ups, old-school Mega Man-esque bosses, and a pretty bangin' soundtrack to boot. There's a lot to like about this game, so let's get to it. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm gonna tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're joining the robot revolution in Kunai. Kunai picks up with a pretty bare-bones setup. Man's been supplanted by killer robots, the good robots showed up and busted you out of a test tube, and now as the sleek experimental iPad in an analog world, it's up to you to overthrow the bad robots, assumedly because they still want to kill the 3 remaining humans that are still mucking about. If we're being honest, Kunai's plot more or less exists to explain its aesthetic, a mashup between old-school analog technology and equally old samurai flicks. But I can't really complain, because it's a really dope aesthetic. Just about everything from the art direction to the soundtrack are downright inspired, and while occasionally backgrounds and foregrounds can blend into each other a little bit, it all comes together to make for an aesthetically sublime experience. The only thing it's missing is a bamboo hat, though I'm pretty sure I just haven't unlocked that yet. The mashup between not quite modern tech and cool samurai shit shows up in the gameplay as well. Your main weapon is, of course, a samurai sword, but over the course of the game, you'll be supplementing your arsenal with everything from shuriken to the chunkiest, juiciest SMGs. But what you really want to come to Kunai for is its most inspired ninja tool, the eponymous kunai themselves. The gist is that they're more or less grappling hooks that shoot out of you at a 45-degree angle, but more interestingly, you've got 2 separate buttons for grappling left or right. The decision to devote 2 entire buttons, especially on a controller, to this one movement tool is a bold one, but in my mind, it's absolutely worth it. The kunai take a bit of getting used to, but there are usually copious handholds to latch onto, and once you get the hang of using them, even ordinary corridors become entertaining playgrounds to whiz down. If you're just free running around the overworld, Kunai has one of the slickest, most dynamic movement systems I've played around with in a long time, and it makes all that Metroidvania-style backtracking a lot more enjoyable. The problem comes during the rare moments when the game expects you to use these tools with more precision and pull off some sick platforming. On paper, a bit of platforming should be an entirely natural gameplay loop in a game so focused on movement, but I spent a surprising amount of time wrestling with kunai during even the most moderately demanding platforming sections for 2 reasons. The more fundamental problem is just the fact that kunai sometimes expects you to make jumps to platforms that aren't even on the screen, and the kunai themselves take some acclimating to, as the length of your grapple line depends on when you deploy them, and several jumps require you to do so at an optimal distance to get just the right arc as you Tarzan to the next platform. The 2 issues compound each other and turn kunai's more involved platforming sections into processes of trial, error, and memorization, which can be a little frustrating when you have to respawn and stomp back a dozen times to do so. It also doesn't help that kunai's not the greatest at teaching some of its concepts, how to best use the kunai included. This game is very much a practitioner of the figure-it-out-by-dying school of tutorialization, and beyond the basic controls, it won't explain any of the finer points of its mechanics. Did you know you could deflect bullets back into enemies? I didn't figure that out until the 3rd level. I also trudged up an entire mountain of these hyperactive assholes that were immune to the entirety of my arsenal, not realizing that the one attack that could consistently hit them was an optional charge ability I randomly bought 2 hours prior. It's not a damning issue by any stretch of the imagination, but kunai just kind of expects you to stumble into all of its mechanical quirks, and it's not guaranteed you'll do so before you need to know them. But thankfully, kunai's rougher edges rarely show themselves. 90% of the time, kunai is a free-flowing joy to play with, and for every irritating moment where I miss a platform I can't even see or run into a mechanical wall, there are a dozen examples of bosses, enemies, and little navigational puzzles that are engaging. Like this moment where you have to climb a mountain while fending off attacks from a boss. Small surprise that kunai is at its best when you actually feel like the badass ninja it wants you to be, and segments like that are when it achieves that feeling. But its best moments are the ones specifically crafted to make you feel that way. every once in a while, Kunai will throw in a Mario-esque segment where you have to keep up with a camera that slowly but steadily pans through a gauntlet of obstacles. And with rare exception, these sections make you play Kunai how it was meant to be experienced, blisteringly fast without ever stopping. The only other times you'll turn into a speedy, unstoppable ninja are when you're backtracking through old areas, which, to be fair, you'll be doing quite a bit of thanks to this being a Metroidvania. But unfortunately, I don't have much to say about Kunai's Metroidvania elements themselves. It checks all the boxes you'd expect it to. The world is a bunch of interconnected zones you can go between at will, there's a progression of power-ups that let you access new areas as you unlock them, and a fair number of side chests are hidden away for you to hunt for if you want. But Kunai doesn't really do anything with any of it. Progression is an extremely linear process of go here to get X power-ups so you can open Y door, and a majority of the side chests both only contain optional cosmetics and seem to be primarily hidden behind fake walls, not obstacles that you need to remember and come back to later once you get a new power-up. Overall, the Metroidvania elements are mostly just there to dole out a new weapon or tool every now and then. But when you put it all together, what do you get out of 5 hours with Kunai? I didn't quite finish the game, but I do have all the power-ups and have started moving into the final act, so this is another short and sweet one. But above all, I'm struck by how disposable Kunai is. There's not a ton this game does that you can't find somewhere else, which probably doesn't sound like much of a compliment, but the flip side of that is that this game is exceedingly easy to pick up, put down, and enjoy even if you never see the credits. Kunai is perfect popcorn entertainment, and some of my favorite moments from this game so far came in its opening hour or two. So, sure, it doesn't have much to actually say, and it won't revolutionize Metroidvanias by any stretch of the imagination, but in most respects, it's a solidly constructed and polished game. Its movement system is undeniably fun to engage with, and its aesthetic won me over. If you're looking for a neat action game to play around with over a weekend, it'll scratch that itch just fine. And as far as nifty 2D action platforming goes, you might also enjoy my review of Indivisible, or the more recent and 3D Journey to the Savage Planet. But I hope you enjoyed this first 5 review. If you did, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're looking for games that value your time and don't pad themselves, I'm your guy. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.